What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Wrestling, and this is my review for the November 11th episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, tonight's WWE Smackdown did a lot of things. There was a lot of good. There was a few things just like, all right, wait and see. But overall, this was a really fun show. If you guys remember my review a few weeks ago, I did mention that it felt like both in AEW and WWE that they were like kind of pausing or kind of like holding back certain storylines. And you could see it now in WWE, considering that now we just finished, or they just finished Crown Jewel. So now you see a lot of storylines with some acceleration to it, if you will. It's real interesting wording right there. But nonetheless, man, we're going to have a really interesting Survivor Series. So there was a Survivor Series match announced tonight, and possibly one that, like the saying I always use, WWE was pretty much telling us without telling us what the men's Survivor Series Wargames match is. So looking forward to that. But before I get into the breakdown and what I thought of this episode of WWE Smackdown, I'm going to give you guys the results. So the first match, you had the Usos defeat the New Day, and they will have the longest reign as WWE Tag Team Champions. You had Santos Escobar defeat Shinsuke Nakamura. You had Liv Morgan, or actually, let me rephrase that. You had Shotzi defeat Sonya Deville, Lacey Evans, Xia Li, Raquel Rodriguez, and Liv Morgan to earn a shot against Ronda Rousey. And you had Braun Strowman defeat Jinder Mahal to move on in the WWE Fox World Cup. So that was the results for WWE Smackdown. Man, there's a lot to break down in these matches. But starting off, they did a recap of the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which is it expected with WWE when they have these big pay-per-views that they're going to give us at least 1 to 3 recaps throughout the show, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. So they gave us a recap of the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, and then we started off with the Usos and New Day. And I got mixed feelings with this match. And mind you, this was a pretty decent match. I think most people's sentiment when you have a New Day Usos match, some love it. They're like, man, it's gonna be a banger match. Other people are like, we've seen this match over 1,000 times. Granted, that could be exaggerated, but it does feel like, to a certain extent, we've seen this matchup at least a few hundred times already. I believe they've been feuding since 2015. Yeah, I believe they've been feuding since 2015. So that's about a 7-year feud. So it is what it is. But this match started off with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa looking on at a TV screen in the locker room. New Day comes out. Usos come out. They have a big, loud New Day Rocks chants. Then you have Xavier and Jey Uso. They start off. But one thing I like about WWE now is they're making these very cool, relevant, and very mindful mentions on WWE TV. And I'll mention the other one during the Shinsuke Nakamura. But like stuff that people talk about and are aware of, which it's really cool, and it's really making WWE, in some extent, as far as mentioning wrestling history, very progressive. and not only WWE history, but other wrestling companies' history. So I like that. They made a reference to the Freebirds, Von Erich's feud. They made a reference to the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express feud. Then after that, Kofi Kingston hit the trust fall on the outside. They also, after that, they made a mention to the Packers and Cowboys rivalry, which they plugged this Sunday's game between the Cowboys and Packers. Then later on, you had a big Sammy Uso chant. You had a big Sami Zayn chant. That dude is over. One thing I did notice, they did make reference that he wasn't there for a personal matter. If they didn't mention that he was not there because of a personal matter, it did come across. And it's crazy. I don't recall them mentioning Sami Zayn was not there for a personal matter during the Usos New Day match. But later on, when Roman and the Bloodline, had their special moment at the end, it did come across that it felt like it was a way for them to start the Bloodline kicking out Sami Zayn because he wasn't there. All the focus was on the Usos, them winning. He wasn't there celebrating with them. Solo was there. They go out later on. Tonight, like I said, if they didn't mention that Sami Zayn was not there for a personal matter, this was a easy way for them to start the process of the Bloodline kicking out Sami Zayn, which I hope that does not happen for a long time because this is so fun and so entertaining to watch on WWE television. Then you had Kofi hit the SOS on Jey Uso, which he wound up kicking out. You get a "This is awesome" chant from the crowd, which I loved. Then you had the Midnight Hour executed by Xavier Woods on Jey Uso on the outside. And then they did the Midnight Hour on Jimmy Uso on the inside, and he wound up breaking the pin, which at this point, you saw the fans really get into it. And this is something that throughout this show, it wasn't as much as it was on Raw this past Monday. But on SmackDown, you do notice it where moments during a match or even a promo segment, the crowd just gets really quiet. It's really interesting. That's some things you do got to tweak a few things. So after they executed the Midnight Hour, you had both teams have a face-off, and that's when the crowd really got into it, and it's like, okay, this is cool. And they're like, the way it was projected was like, okay, both these teams have gone back and forth, done their moves and everything, and it's like, you know what, let's just the hell with this. And they just went at it, and the crowd got into it. Both teams were brawling. Then later on after that, actually a few moments later after that, the Usos hit the 1D for the pin, 1, 2, 3. And afterwards, you had this sign of like a nod of respect between the Usos and New Day. It was a fun match, but I do think that the Usos New Day rivalry, or when they have matches, or because they've had so many matches, it's at the level of when I believe after WrestleMania 18, when they had the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys, and I believe they added Billy and Chuck at that four-way or something like that. But it was another match that you already had the Hardys, Dudleys, and Edge and Christian, some type of dynamic. And mind you, that was 2002, and those guys feuded. Their feud started in fall of 99. So that's only 3 years. But by that time, by 2002, it was already like, oh my God, these guys have fought so many times that it's just like over and done with. Mind you, that's 3 years. The Usos and the New Day have been feuding for at least 7 years. So it does feel like, man, WWE should start building new tag teams for these guys to um, face. And honestly, I wouldn't mind it if whatever or whenever this bloodline thing ends. Honestly, you should put the New Day and the Usos in a faction because they feuded so much that it. I look at it this way: you should have a tag team version of the 2-man power trip, or in their case, the 4-man power trip. The Usos and the New Day, have them come together and, like, you know what? We've dominated the WWE tag team scene for literally a decade, close to a decade. So there's no team that could beat either one of us. Um, we've gone at each other's throats. We're the best. So I would like that after, or when, after this whole bloodline thing runs its course with Roman Reigns, because I think that would be pretty cool, and logically it would make sense, and it would freshen up New Day and uh, the bloodline dynamic, where they're not opponents, they're allies, which rarely has happened. Or honestly, I don't think it has happened. I think it maybe had a few moments, but I think the only time was when they gave up the right for Kofi to go after the WWE Championship, which he won against Bryan Danielson at WrestleMania. So I don't know. I think that would be cool. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Do you think after this whole bloodline storylines run this course, should the Usos and the New Day become a faction? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. So after this, you had the announcement that the World Cup winner will face Gunther. Then we go to commercial. We come back. You got the bloodline. Roman gets up and he looks like he's just so serious. And he's like, man, it feels good. Time for me to handle some stuff. And I'll handle it out there in the ring. And you guys are going to join me. Then we get to Shinsuke Nakamura, Santos Escobar. This was a really quick match. It wasn't, man, the way they've been using Shinsuke, man, his matches aren't what they were in NXT against Sami Zayn. And the first 2.5 years when he was called up in the main roster, his matches, you could say, are similar to how they had Cesaro before he was released, where it's a very basic match where whatever Shinsuke's strongest moves are, that's it. There's no elaborate storytelling between each move. It's just very basic. And this match, I mean, Santos Escobar looked good, but he had the upper hand most of the match. What I did like about this match, and this is what I was talking about earlier, was that they made mention of his match against Great Muta, Great Muta's last match tour at the Budokan Hall. They mentioned that, and then right after that, they're like, Wade Barrett's like, yeah, Santos Escobar and Shinsuke, they had a feud in CMLL. It was like, whoa, CMLL. So that's what I mean by I like these mentions of other promotions and wrestling history outside of WWE. I did tweet this when that happened. I think it's only a matter of time before they start mentioning AEW. Even though it's, their competitor, their biggest competitor, but at the same time, it's like, you guys been talking to each other, doing business deals and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's gonna happen, and I do think it's gonna happen in 2023. So yeah, I like that. Shinsuke Nakamura sliding suplex when he slides underneath the ring. That's a beautiful move. He does that so damn good. Then you had the flying knee from the top rope by Shinsuke, but that wasn't enough because eventually Santos Escobar executed the Phantom Driver from the top rope on Shinsuke, which, man, that was a badass move. That was nice. He gets the win. So he advances into the World Cup. They don't call it the tournament, they just call it the World Cup. So he advances. There wasn't anything backstage or anything like that. Then we go to Liv Morgan. She comes out. We go to commercial. We come back. LA Knight is with the backstage interviewer. I can't recall who it was. So he's like, it's not big if I'm not in the World Cup. As he's talking, the SmackDown screen starts showing Bray Wyatt's symbol, like it's flickering, and then it just starts showing it, and then he's looking at the interviewer. He's like, what are you talking about? And he looks, he's like, what? You got time for show his stuff? And he looks at the I believe the stagehand to his right of the screen, and he turns around and Bray Wyatt's there. And Bray's like, I know what it takes. How far are you willing to go? LA Knight responds, you know what? Go back to your playhouse and take your puppets and shove them wherever you feel like it. Then Bray just smiles. He headbutts him and walks off. Yeah, I wasn't expecting LA Knight to be Bray Wyatt's first opponent / feud. I'm very conflicted on it. Part of me, I think it's cool. It gets LA Knight into a program with something, with someone high profile like Bray Wyatt's. But then at the same time, I'm just like, this is interesting. That's an interesting call. Do I think it's a bad thing? No, I don't think it's a bad thing. But for me, it doesn't feel like a major like feud that, ooh man, this is gonna go somewhere. Granted, it's too early to call that because it just happened right now that you had a face off. So give it a few weeks or so. Again, we don't know if this feud is gonna lead to a match at Survivor Series, which is crazy because it's only 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks. Yeah, tomorrow will be 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. I don't know. It's really interesting how that's gonna play out. LA Knight is a great talker. Again, I did not expect Bray Wyatt's first feud to be with LA Knight. I don't know, really weird. It's one of those things that, of course, in WWE, let it play out before when Vince McMahon was charged. Like, oh God, don't let it play out. With Triple H, you can let it play out to an extent. I don't know. It's an interesting call that LA Knight is Bray Wyatt's first feud, and considering this SmackDown, there was no mention or anything of Uncle Howdy. So is there, I don't know, it's just really weird. And this is one of the, I'm not going to say an issue, but this is one of the concerns that, several people, few people have had as far as Bray Wyatt's storylines, is that sometimes they go in a direction where you're like, oh, this is interesting, and there's other things that are going on within his storyline with himself and his faction at times. This goes back to the Wyatt family and everything, where it gets convoluted and then it goes into this place where it's all together, and you're like, I like his creativity. I don't know where this is going. I'll watch it. Oh, okay, they're moving here and he moves on to here. That's one of the concerns. But again, for me personally, I'm willing to see where this goes with Bray Wyatt because he doesn't have Vince McMahon to deal with. So I'm willing to see where his creativity and his storylines will go. But it's an interesting call to have LA Knight be his first feud. It's pretty Didn't see that one coming. So I'll see. I like it. I like LA Knight. I like Bray Wyatt. So let's see what happens. So after that, we have Liv Morgan versus Sonya Deville, Shotzi Blackheart, Xia Li, and Lacey Evans. This match, this women's match, this was very, very weird. And the reason why I say it was weird is because, one, the way the crowd was. And this was similar to how the crowd was on Monday. They were very quiet. They only reacted when Raquel Rodriguez got the table. And it was mostly the crowd around the barricades. Um, the WWE's women's division is in a very weird spot. And that's both for the Raw Women's Championship and the SmackDown's Women's Championship. I don't know. It's as opposed to Bray Wyatt. Let me wait and see. With the women's division, it's just, man, I don't know. It's very. The only thing I could come up with is weird. Let me know what you guys think of the WWE women's division. Comment below. But man, it's really weird because, man, there's a lot of talent that was in this match, but this match just felt like it was just, these two wrestlers are brawling, then these two wrestlers are brawling, then these two wrestlers are brawling, then, one gets the upper hand, and another one gets the upper hand. It was just really weird. And the crowd was just quiet. Then there was a certain point where the crowd was booing. Then, like I said, when Raquel Rodriguez got the table, they started cheering. And then Liv Morgan wound up putting, this was before the table, forgive me, guys. She put like the steel steps there, and Raquel Rodriguez had Sonya Deville in like a pile driver move. And then Liv Morgan attempted to jump from the barricade, and she landed on Raquel, which everything that happened when she landed, like everyone just landed really awkwardly. Thankfully, no one was injured, but you could see Liv Morgan like slightly bump the table, like with her chin, or just, it was just really weird. And then after that, Shotzi wound up hitting the Neverway dump pin. I believe it was on Sonya Deville, gets the win. Like, just really, like, you really didn't get to see the showcase. You didn't get to see Xia Li showcase her full set move set. Lacey Evans, like Xia Li, Lacey Evans. Who else? You could say Sonya Deville. And I don't know, Sonya got pinned. Basically, Xia Li and Lacey Evans were like background for this match. They really didn't have anything where they were showcased. And I don't know, man. It's just like, granted, they're teasing on Raw. They're teasing, 3 mystery spots for the women's Wargames match, and there's a great possibility that it could be Sasha Banks and Naomi. But even still, like tonight, you had I'll get into the return in a little bit, but you have these returns, and it's like there's returns, but there's no like there's nothing that's built or being built to facilitate the wrestlers, going on to something really like deeply creative, and where the fans are like, ooh, man, this is going to be really good. It's like, yeah, they're back. And I don't know. It's just really, really weird how this is playing out, but we'll see what happens. So you get a backstage segment with Shotzi and Emma, and and was like, "Where's Madcap?" So that was really interesting that they would do that, because of course it's been reported that Emma and Madcap are an item. So it was like, all right, that's kind of funny. And Shotzi's like, "You're crushing. Oh my God, you're crushing." And she turns around. Shayna Baszler's there. Shayna Baszler's like, "Do you realize what you just um, won? You won Ronda Rousey giving you a beating, breaking your arm, breaking your ankle." And Shotzi's like, "I don't care what she gives, um, she's going to have to do a lot to take me." And Shayna Baszler's like, "Well, turn around and tell her." She turns around, Ronda Rousey's there, and as Ronda Rousey's looking at her, Shayna Baszler just puts Shotzi in a chokehold and chokes her out. I'm sorry, man. They the WWE and Triple H, they need to showcase Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler more. And Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey should be the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, because those two, I've been saying it for a while. They need to put them together, and they finally put them together. Like, there is so much potential for Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler as a tag team and as tag team champions. That would be such an intriguing, captivating, and if you could say newsworthy tag team, because of Ronda Rousey's notoriety, and you have Shayna Baszler and her accomplishments in NXT. And like I've mentioned before, you add in Sonya Deville as their manager. Oh my God, that is a tandem that trio should happen. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in 2023. But man, Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey, man, that is the perfect duo in this women's division, man. That is the perfect pairing. It fits, it clicks visually. It's freaking so believable because of their MMA background. Just their presence, just the way they walk and talk, and man, there's so much there to do with them. It's like, man, just showcase them more. And I don't know. We'll see what happens, after Survivor Series, and of course once the new year starts. But man, WWE really needs to showcase Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler more. And hopefully they have Sonya Deville as their manager. Like, man, that would be so good. So from there we get Ricochet being interviewed. Gunther comes in. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna love to beat you." Of course, Ricochet is in the World Cup. Again, they didn't say tournament, just the World WWE Fox World Cup. Next week he faces Ali, which that should be a banger of a match. Like, they had a feud, I believe it was this year or last year, on Main Event. That those matches got so good reviews. That find those matches between Ricochet and Ali on Main Event. It might be on YouTube, it might be on Hulu or what have you. Find those matches. Those matches were so damn good. So then we have Jinder Mahal, who's in this World Cup tournament. I'll just call it tournament. Screw it. And he's running down that he wants to win the World Cup and win the IC title. He's facing Braun Strowman. Basically, Mahal attacks Strowman. Strowman hand spikes Mahal. After that, he just freaking power bombed him and pinned him. That was it. I do think that we are possibly headed to a Strowman Gunther match. I have no problem with that. Yet, it does feel like the way they're using Strowman, it feels like we're going right back to how he was before he was released. Like, it's slowly going back to that, where it's just like, he's a big dude, he's aggressive, and this, but it's just like, him versus Gunther should be good, but Gunther has had fantastic wrestling matches. Strowman has had terrific squash matches. And that's gonna be interesting if and when they wrestle Strowman and Gunther, because that's going to be a very interesting thing. If that does happen, man, that's Braun Strowman is going to have a wrestling match to an extent because Gunther has had some fantastic wrestling matches that are still being talked about, and we look forward to the future wrestling match he's gonna have. Gunther versus Roman Reigns. That's a moneymaker right there that I'm looking forward to seeing. From there, we get Zelina Vega. She's there with Legado del Fantasma. And we go to commercial. She comes back. BFAP comes out with Hit Row. They're in the ring. All of a sudden, the Vikings Raiders music hits, and we see Sarah Logan. She turns around, and then the Viking Raiders attack both Legado del Fantasma and Hit Row. They just beat them up. You have BFAB. She gets laid out by Sarah Logan, and Sarah Logan has braids and face paint. And right away, I'm glad I was not the only one, but right away, her looks identical. She's only missing maybe a few more ornaments or what have you on her attire, but her look looks identical to Max the Impaler. And if you don't know who Max the Impaler is, just Google it. Go on YouTube, search on social media, Max the Impaler. She has been around for a few years, and she is an impressive women's wrestler on the independent scene. And she was impressive in Ring of Honor before it was sold to Tony Khan. She's been in NWA. She's been on AEW Dark. She was on Maria Kanellis's Women's Wrestling Army. Like, she's been, I know she's been on New Japan Strong, I believe so. Yeah, she's been, and I'm glad also, I'm not the only one that noticed this, that right away when she came out, and Sarah Logan, and she's a fun wrestler to watch and everything. The only problem I have is that her look is like, I'm being generous by saying so similar. Like, it looks identical to Max the Impaler's look, that after tonight, if there isn't any modifications to her look, right away people are going to, oh, that's Max the Impaler. That's Max the Impaler. And it's, for me, I just feel that right away, like even tonight, it took away from her return. Everyone's like, oh, she returned. But then it was just like the talk just generally on social media, and just, it was just like, man, she looked like Max the Impaler. Man, she looks like Max the Impaler. And it wasn't, the talk didn't go to, wow, you got the Viking Raiders with Sarah Logan. Man, that's going to be interesting how this plays out, because now you got 3 teams with a manager. Like, man, it's going to be really interesting how this plays out. It wasn't that. It was Sarah Logan looks exactly like Max the Impaler. And it's unfortunate because Sarah Logan is such a very good wrestler, and Max the Impaler is such a good wrestler. So to have on your return a comparison to a very popular independent wrestler that, and let me rephrase that, she's not independent, like, she's a popular women's wrestler, that it kind of goes against you as a return. So I don't know. We'll see how this plays out next week. But man, it's cool to see the Viking Raiders and Sarah Logan back. They've been having vignettes for like the past 3 months. So yay, finally you're back. And to see how this is going to be solved, or how they're going to incorporate them with Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma. I don't know, let's see how this plays out. But yeah, Sarah Logan, hopefully they tweak her look, because man, if they don't, it's going to draw crazy comparisons to Max the Impaler, which is so preventable. like if it's already drawn comparisons, all you got to do is modify it a little bit, tweak it, so those comparisons don't happen, and Sarah Logan can just have like her own identity with the look that she's trying to get across. That it's not similar to her look. Like it, I go back to the Road Warriors and Demolition. They both had spray paint. They both had face paint. The Road Warriors had the spike shoulder pads. The Demolition had little spikes, but in like these leather jackets and uh, uh, was it the pants and everything. So I mean, there were similarities, but their look was just total opposite. They had face paint, but they were just total opposites. Uh, this Sarah Logan Max the Impaler, like it's not total opposites. It's like identical. So hopefully Triple H and WWE they like tweak some things because man, if they do, it'd be really cool. Then we get the Bloodline coming out. This is where they mentioned Sam Lee was dealing with a personal matter. You get Uzi chants. They're booing Heyman because it's not Uzi. Roman starts talking. He's like, it's not easy being my cousins. He's interrupted by Ridge Holland and Butch. They bring back Sheamus. Sheamus gets to the ring and he's like, yeah, you guys broke my arm a few weeks ago, and you know what? And they just start brawling. And as they're brawling, Drew McIntyre's music hits. And what's funny, I mentioned this a while back, like last year. If you listen to Drew McIntyre's entrance music and you listen to Sheamus music, they sound the same. Like if you couldn't tell, like they sound so similar that it's just like, do they have the same entrance theme? So Drew McIntyre comes out. They start brawling. Roman gets the upper hand, and Roman gets the boot on Drew McIntyre. There's just chaos and everyone is separated. So, like I was saying at the beginning of this review, WWE was telling us without telling us what the men's Wargames match will be or could be. Find it interesting. Again, the one drawback that I have, similar to what they did with the women's, that Summer or Survivor Series is 2 weeks away, and now we're building to the War Games match, which it's like, okay, this is cool. For me, I'm looking forward to this War Games match, this men's and women's War Games match. But it does feel like that the storytelling leading up to the War Games match and Survivor Series. There's a lot of there's going to be some things that are going to leave out just to accelerate and, just consolidate the feud leading up to Survivor Series, which is going to be like, man, I wish they would have done this. I wish they would have done this. I wish they wanted to do this. Man, it'd be cool if they did this. They did this. Mind you, we're only 2 weeks away from Survivor Series. So it's like, man, but looking on the flip side, that is going to be a fun War Games match. The Bloodline versus Drew McIntyre and the Brawling Brutes. The Brawling Brutes and Drew McIntyre, they fit. Like Sheamus, Drew, Ridge Holland, and Butch. Like that is a dope four-man group. Like that is really cool. That, man, I like that. I like that group. And man, there's gonna be some physicality with that War Games match, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to it and just seeing how this plays out. But that was SmackDown. Yes, that was SmackDown. They told us without telling us what the men's War Games match is going to be at Survivor Series. So, other than that, man, this was a decent, fun SmackDown. The women's, yeah, man, it just goes back to the way the women are being presented and their matches, like very short, and the BFAB Zelina match was just cut from because of the returning Viking Raiders and Sarah Logan. the 6-pack challenge match just just felt like it was so consolidated and just clunky. It was just like, all right, like it's really interesting. Hopefully in 2023, the women's division, gets back that just enthusiasm and just like, man, they're gonna put a good match. It just feels like now is just like, oh, this name is wrestling this name, and that's not how it should be, because all these women in WWE's women's division, they can go. Like, they're not just names alone. Like, they can tell some good stories, and hopefully they are put in the position to tell those stories uh, after Survivor Series and heading into 2023. So I don't know. This is gonna be a fun. Was it 2 weeks, 6 weeks of 2023 in WWE? So I don't know. I'm looking forward to. So that is my review for the November 11th episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you are notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, before I leave, like this video so that way more people can see this video and see my reviews. So, and this goes out to you guys who subscribe to me, because, hey, without you, my name ain't getting out there, man. So I appreciate you guys just liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, man. I greatly appreciate it. And, man, just hit the like and share it, and it's all good. So with that, enjoy pro wrestling, man. There's more pro wrestling coming in the coming weeks and days and stuff like that. So with that, I'm out, guys.